I think we are changing literature. And not only that, we are changing our understanding of how life was at the time. Because history isn't only written by the victors, as they say. History is kind of assimilated through the texts that have been written, through the art, through the kind of music, so that we can get a snapshot of how life was. If we put our 2023 sensibilities on all these texts, we'll lose sight of how life was. We won't know where we've come from. We'll have effectively wallpapered over history. And we presume in a very high-handed and arrogant way that 2023 has it right. And 2023 has the thinking right. And our language is correct. While other people could say at a different time, actually, no, that's not quite right. And they could do it again, and they could do it again. And you'd lose sight completely of what was actually happening in the 1960s, the 1970s, whenever it was written. We have to keep the integrity of what the writer was writing and let the ability and let the competency of the text either stand the test of time or fail the test of time.
Well, particularly in these James Bond texts, let me give you a couple of examples. The writer talks about the sweet tang of rape. That has been taken out. Blithering women failing to do a man's work, and homosexuality being a stubborn disability. Actually, those are the ones that are staying. I correct myself. Those are the ones that are actually staying. They've taken out primarily references to ethnicities. So there is the use of the N-word in relation to black people, Stella. That surely has to go in 23.
Well, that's a brilliant example of how we are putting a 2023 sensibility on it. We can keep the sweet tang of rape or whatever you said, but we can't put in the N-word because in 2023, that's deemed correct. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. Both of them are completely offensive and they should be kept and maybe end up in a museum. Maybe they'll end up in a place, archives, so we know that's how life was. That's where we've come from. This is where we are now. We need to have some sort of ability to know. History is really important. And we need to know where we've come from. And we need to know how we've developed and evolved our thinking. And we need to know why people might be so distressed at certain words. And the only reason and ability to know why will be because we knew that's how it was before. That's what attitudes to women were. Because otherwise nobody will believe us effectively because there won't be any proof.
Rebecca, let me bring you in. So perhaps it's just a little bit, I mean, it is subjective. It can be nothing but subjective. So how do you square that particular conflict?
Yeah, and it is difficult because I do agree that once you pull one thread and you say that one kind of word is not okay, but the attitudes to a woman are okay, you do get into a difficult situation. It's the same thing that happened with the Roald Dahl situation. Calling a child fat's not okay, but calling a child other things is okay. However, there's two things to remember here. Number one, publishing is primarily a commercial concern. And therefore, this is the estates continuing to try to be modern and approachable and readable. The originals will still exist and should still exist, but I can understand that I would rather not read a book that had the N-word littered throughout it. It doesn't feel like a appropriate or enjoyable beach read at this point, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to stay relevant and they're trying to stay modern. I understand that, and I think traditionally stories have always changed and evolved with the years, particularly with the oral tradition. You know, Cinderella is not the Cinderella of 500 years ago or 200 years ago. It used to be the Grimm fairy tale version of Cinderella is arguably children prefer it, but it's incredibly violent and very, very gory. And so we have always updated stories as time has gone on. It's not like we used to leave things fixed and now suddenly we started editing them. Every time an estate reissues a piece of work, some edits are made.